I bought a new camera, but it's in this box because Amazon screwed up the delivery twice, so it didn't arrive in time for me to figure out how to use it before I had to make this video. So that's slightly annoying, but yes, so this is still being filmed on my old DSLR, which isn't really designed for video, but yeah, I actually bought a little cheapy digital camcorder, which I'll talk about in a bit, which I'll be filming from now on, so hopefully things will be a little crisper. It can shoot in up to 4K, whereas my DSLR can only shoot in 720, which is why that's the maximum size you ever see my videos go out at. But I'll cover that in a little bit. What I'll actually talk about today is what is the actual cost of making this channel. What's the material requirement? Now, if you are curious about this because you're interested in doing something similar, I'm in a fairly unique position, so it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to do what I do, just mechanically speaking. I was a freelance sound recordist for 5 or 6 years, and then I moved to London, and I now work at a kit hire house where I can get access to a lot of equipment. So a lot of this stuff is things that I've accumulated over the last 10 years, as I'll explain as we go. But yeah, so it's been a slow build to this channel. Obviously I could just do this out of my bedroom or whatever, and I've done that a couple of times. I've attempted to do that a couple of times, and we were podcasting before. You know, I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, but I have done a video blog thing from my flat in the past, and we have done podcast stuff, some of which we filmed. So we were doing, which again we were doing out of the flat, and obviously that's cheaper to do than this. There's almost no cost sometimes in doing that, but it's all fed into getting to this position now. So let me try and break it down. Hardware. So I have a Tascam HD-P2. That is my sound mixer that I bought when I became a sound man. It's a relatively simple dual channel mixer that you can record and edit on, do a tiny little bit of editing on. Now you can't get it anymore. I don't think it's made anymore even, but you can get an equivalent for a couple £100, 200-300 quid. It's not a hugely expensive machine, but obviously it's a absolute necessity if you're going to be a sound recordist. So it was kind of a slightly better than the cheapest possible thing, and that's what went through my DT8 soundboard, which was a gift. I actually got that as a gift. I think it was a birthday gift or a Christmas present or something, which I got several years ago because we wanted it for the podcast. So when we were doing podcasting from home, we were using all my audio equipment, but then it's slightly awkward because we had to split the cables and have everything kind of feeding into the one. So I wanted the mixing desk so that we could have, it has 8 inputs now, so that I could have many mics plugged in around the table and everybody mic'd up to control that independently, and then just run it output into my sound recorder. I actually saved it somewhere towards the end of us producing those podcasts, which was unfortunate. I kind of, by the time I had it, we very quickly didn't need it anymore, but I knew it was going to come in useful, and this concept was sort of vaguely in the back of my mind for this channel, so I knew I would find a use for it anyway. Again, relatively affordable, about £150-200 you can find something like this. Then had microphones. Now if you are doing sound recording, microphone is probably where you want to spend your money. You want to get a decent one. This is an ME66 directional mic, or shotgun mic as sometimes called, and it is very directional. It's the most directional mic that I own of all, which is perfect for films, because in film all you want to really record on set is the dialogue, is anything that matters. So you want this just pointed right in an actor's face, whoever's on camera, and then just get that, and then nothing else. Everything else can be done in post. You just want to get that dialogue absolutely clear. Sound, I know I'm biased as I'm sound tech, but it is one of the key areas to making your film look more professional. If you have good sound, it will elevate your film. I can tell the budget of a film by how crisp or badly layered the sound is. It's just that little detail that makes everything better. So hire a soundie. I know we're expensive, but hire a soundie if you can, and just get that done right. Again, I know I'm biased on that subject to some degree. The other microphone, you can see I'm using one now, just these one of kind of desktop or table kind of podcasting mics. I pretty much just googled podcasting microphone and it came as a full kit. So the mic, the shock mount that you can see it's in there, this pop shield, and the mic arms that are currently set up in the other room. Those come as a kit, and they're not very expensive. You can get them for probably around £50 each, or a decent version. I knew I'd need at least 4, so I bought them. I did find, however, that because we didn't have a permanent space to record in, that setting up the mic arms every single time was kind of a nuisance, so I ended up buying these weighted bases, and they more easily can just come out of the box, plump them on the table, and they're good to go. So that just kind of simplified that. So that worked for our podcast setup. I wasn't a on-set recordist anymore by that point. I had stepped away from that because I had found the self-employed life quite stressful. So we were doing the podcast thing. The camera I'm recording on now is my my old Canon DSLR. It's an 1100D. It only records in 720, as I mentioned, so that's why all my videos are in that. That's actually the maximum I can currently record in until I know how to use this new one. So yeah, it's just a DSLR. It's not really designed for video. It's not best equipped for it, but it has a video setting. It's kind of the bare minimum. Probably the oldest of one of the oldest Canon DSLRs that can actually do video. In terms of computing, I've got my old Mac in the office here. I have a new PC at home. That's the big expense from all of this. I needed something that would run Avid, because I knew I wanted Avid. I had Avid on the Mac, but like an old version of it, and I'd switched to Final Cut at one point because it just ran more efficiently on my old Mac. But I don't like Final Cut. I had Final Cut 10. Which is really bad software. It's kind of like curiously bad. So yeah, I didn't like that. I wanted to get back to Avid, and I knew I needed a PC. So the big expense from all this was a PC. I just bought basically just a high-end gaming PC. If you have one of those already, then score. Avid itself, the software, buying it, the actual like hard copy of it, used to be very expensive. I had a student version back in uni, which I think was a couple £100. Even for like the student version, it was kind of a stripped down version. I think it came watermarked, so you couldn't like use it professionally, and there were restrictions on it. But like the proper copy was like £1,500 at some point. But now it comes as a subscription service, so you can buy it online and you subscribe to the software basically. And I think it's £25 a month, and you just have Avid now. And that's that's incredible. That's like such a massively different saving to when you would have to like essentially have a loan to buy it in the first place. Now it has a monthly subscription service, which is cheaper than some mobile phone contracts. So that's really good. And I know Avid because I learnt it at university. I like Avid. I really like how Avid works. It's just sort of it could just be simply that it's what I'm used to and it's what I learnt on, but I still think it's a really good software. So the only other things I've bought for moving into this studio, specifically for this channel, is my Atom Mini, which I bought because I knew we were doing a multi-camera setup and I needed something to control that. This is just the Mini. It's not the Mini Pro, because we're not the regular Mini can go feed to straight to what's an internet thing called? Modem? Why is my brain blanking on this? Whatever it is. Anyway, this can't broadcast directly online, but it can go to a PC, and then you could run it through OBS or Twitch Studio or something if you were doing online. I knew that we weren't going to do a lot of live broadcasting stuff. We will do some in the future, and I've attempted it on this channel before, but I knew we weren't going to do it regularly simply because we wouldn't have a permanent camera set up here, so we couldn't just come in every week and just broadcast something. It's just not an option. So there wasn't much point in spending more money than I needed to, so I just bought an Atom Mini, which was about £250, a little bit more, £200-300. I think I actually got it at a discount. I bought it in a small sale. I also have bought, this other day I bought a really cheap camera. This was £150 on Amazon, a little 4K camcorder. It was pretty much the cheapest one I could find, and I was like, I'll give that a try. I have an array of headphones that I've accumulated over the years, some of which I must have bought, some of which I think I've just sort of been gifted or donated or found, or there's broken ones that from work that were unsavable, and I took and I cannibalized them together until I got a working pair. Other random things, the pop shield, that's a random thing that I don't remember if I bought or found or was given or stole from university. Genuinely don't remember where that came from. The green screen we bought, so we bought a green screen rig from, probably just from online, probably just from Amazon, a cheap one that we did a little bit of filming on at one point. Hard drives I've had to buy because there's just terabytes of footage involved in this project. It's crazy. We shoot like 4 hours at a time, and I cut it into a 2-hour-ish video for the actual play stuff. But it's so much video footage, so you've got to invest in a big hard drive for that. So it's a weird hodgepodge of stuff that I've either bought for other reasons, been given, or just accumulated literally over the last 15 years, just stuff that I've accumulated. So that's what I mean when I say I'm in a relatively unique position. You sat there watching this will not have accumulated audio equipment for the last 15 years, presumably. So it's an odd one. But if you wanted to get, it's a good, not including the computer, it's easily a couple grand's worth of stuff, a couple of grand's worth of hardware, just kind of like off the bat if you wanted to get all of this gear. In terms of the shoot days, so when it's just it's just me, the camera, all that stuff I've just mentioned is all it is. Oh, I bought a ring light. See it reflecting my glasses. Look, there you can see it. So I bought a ring light as well. That was like 20 quid. That wasn't much of anything. That's the last thing. But yeah, when it's just me, the camera, that gear's all I need. All of that gear that covers it. Obviously, when it's the actual play shoots, the multi-camera shoots, we need quite a lot more. So I get that gear out of from my work. We tried a few different setups to see what works, but on that shoot, so if we have a 2 or 3 day shoot, that's a good maybe 3 or 4 grand's worth of rental equipment just for that 3-day shoot. For ease, I'll post the exact breakdown here. But yeah, it is a good over a grand's worth just of rental equipment a day. So that's how much that would normally cost. Obviously, I work there, so I get a hefty discount, because I would not be able to afford that setup at all. I would want to point out that I'm doing this is all off my own back, this is all self-financed at the moment, so I would absolutely not be able to afford to do this if I had to pay full price for that rental gear. Not even close. I wouldn't even be trying this. I'd be trying something probably, but probably not this. It's a very unique position and a very fortuitous position to be able to do this kind of thing. Obviously, however, the big expense is the office, this space that I'm in right now. So we've looked all over the place for a couple of years, looking into renting a space, say for a shoot. So say you were going to do a day's shooting to just kind of film a series, was like £50 an hour was kind of the average rate that I was finding for a recording studio, like a cheap recording studio. And I tried to go through one of my contacts and some work to try and find a space, and I found a couple of places that were kind of like, we can help you out, but they still unfortunately weren't quite right. And the restrictions, just because they were doing us a favour, so we could only go in at certain hours and do certain things, and we couldn't build a set and leave it there. So the amount of time that we would have lost just working around that, hugely generous offers they were, and I'm very grateful to the people that made them, but it just wasn't practical, I knew, in the long run. So in an ideal world, we had somewhere that we had control over, and we could shoot continually whenever we wanted to, but that meant hiring or renting or buying an office of some kind, or a big house, which again, I can't afford any of these things. And it was very clear almost immediately that in London, not even an option, completely undoable. No way could we afford an office or a studio space or anything in London. And that was crazy. So I immediately started looking outside of London, just gave up on London. I looked at a few places and spoke to people like, oh yeah, we'd love to have like a filmmaker in and stuff, but the rent was insane. And I just this is basically a second home. And that was just not practical, not even going to remotely consider doing that. So I immediately went outside of London and started looking at places and found lots of little officey things. And then a producer friend of mine in Milton Keynes, who I kept in touch with after working on their first feature, mentioned that there was a place called Arts Gateway, part of the Arts Central, or it might be the other way around to get the names wrong. kind of charity organisation that creates studio spaces for artists, and he recommended we get in touch with them. So I got in touch with them and came to see this premises, which is relatively new. I'd have to ask precisely how new. I think they've only been here maybe a couple of years. But yeah, this kind of warehouse space that they've turned into artists' studio areas, and they've basically just turned all of the warehouse floor into a selection of studios, where you can either rent out a large studio if you're like making clothing or something large, doing woodwork and things, and a bunch of smaller spaces where you can just kind of basically rent a little desk, a little kind of, I guess, hot box, is that the word? A little desk in a room for like £5 or £10 a month, and then just kind of you've just got a desk that you can do sketching and drawing, whatever. It's a little community of artists that you can work in. What's great about this is it's very motivational. So the atmosphere here and the kind of having this space, when you're doing an artistic thing, it requires a lot of materials and space and things set up, and having somewhere that's set up. If you haven't got that space at home, if you haven't got a big house that you can turn one room into an art studio, and then having a space that you can come to and just have everything there ready to go, like we have here now, is a huge bonus. So yeah, it's good from a practical standpoint, and it's a good mentality to have as motivational. Like, we have this space, it's my workspace. When I'm here, I'm doing work, even though it's fun and it's essentially a hobby, and I'm doing it for my own amusement. It's still good to have that motivation. We're not contracted here, which is a big bonus. We're not locked in. We pay month by month, just pay a month in advance. So basically, the only thing we only need to give a month's notice before we leave, and we're not locked into anything at all. Which is huge bonus. We could, if this suddenly goes south, we can just leave, and it's an amazing space, an absolutely amazing space. The huge room that we obviously do all the filming in, and this office room come to a total of less than £400 a month, and with no business rates, no hidden costs. That's bills included. So that's all it is. That's flat, everything all in. That's what it is. Like, bearing in mind that when I was talking at the front here, when I was looking at renting a recording studio in London, I said it was going to be £50 an hour, £50 per hour. That's insane. And to rent like a white screen room or a curve room or something, and we can now, not to the same level necessarily, but we can build a similar space in that room there. And it's like £12 a day essentially is what we pay for this location. So even though that is incredibly good, it still is our expense, and we still can only afford that for a limited amount of time. We can't keep this place forever. I reckon I could afford this place for a year, give or take, and we've been here for 3 months now. So that was kind of our cut-off period. Like, if we can't make it work within a year, then we'll reassess and maybe step away. We don't have any investors. We don't have any kind of backing or anything to bring off. We just have a lot of luck, I guess. A lot of like small miracles. The fact that I've accumulated all this equipment over the years, and the fact that I know so many people that work in the industry, and I now work in a place where I have access to even more equipment. The fact that I just happened to know somebody who knew of this place, and I found this place, and the person who just happened to move out of this particular big office at the right time, when we were ready to just kind of dive in. I mean, it sounds kind of like annoying, but it's kind of how things work out. Things just sometimes just are that lucky. I'm not going to say that we are in an incredibly strong position. We are in a position. There's still a lot of risk involved in what we're doing here, and we need it to work. Like I say, within that year's time frame, we need something to have worked, and there's like little things that we're working on, but we need to be in a position after like next November, the coming November, we need a position where we can say that this is worth our time. And currently it's yeah, I'm quite happy with where it's at currently, and I'm not necessarily relying entirely on YouTube to fund me, and that's quite a crazy thing to do. But if we can get some proof of concept going here and some additional projects, and have something we can advertise by the summer. To be like, here's what we can do. Let's get some sponsors on board or some investors on board, and try and push it to the next level. That's kind of where we're at. And then, like I say, by November, just see if it's a viable thing to keep doing, viable progression of a YouTube career or an online career or filmmaking. Maybe we kind of chugging along just enough to keep going, or maybe we go off in a completely different direction and close the channel and have ended up started working somewhere in the industry. It's hard to say where you can be at, because as I've said before, I wasn't entirely expecting the first couple of videos in this channel to do so well. So you never know what's around the corner, really. It's important to note as well that all the furniture that's in this place either was already mine. So this is my desk here that I'm on now. It's my computer desk from my parents' house that they just have had in storage. But everything else here mostly was stuff that they had here. So the place was partially furnished, and there was some extra furniture kind of in storage downstairs in this place. And so the couches are all in storage downstairs, and the tables that we film on. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. That's pretty much just us covered of where we're at. That's kind of the last of the big questions about this space. And about what we're trying to achieve here, and what we've kind of got to the point of being able to do. It's when I say it out loud, it seems kind of wild that we managed to get here. Like, I've wanted to get back into filmmaking for years, and then obviously becoming an obsession with gaming and actual play shows, and wanting to do something like that. And then this all kind of happened kind of suddenly. Obviously it was a plan, but then once you've got the location, once you're actually spending money on something, and the location is obviously the big one, suddenly you've got to be like, oh, we've got to do something, otherwise we're wasting money, and we don't have money to waste. So we've got to kind of get in quickly. So suddenly, yeah, it did feel like it snowballed a little bit suddenly there at the beginning. And if you've watched some of these previous making ofs, you'll know that the first shoot we did went quite badly and is unfortunately unusable, I think. Sometimes I'm just kind of get a bit giddy when I'm here, because I almost can't believe that we're doing this, and we've got this sort of space at our disposal, and that we've managed to put this much work into it. It's kind of good. It's kind of like my happy place now, this little office. So it's really good. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope that was informative. If you have any questions that I completely forgot to cover, then do pop them in the comments below. Speaking of money and finances, we have a Ko-Fi support page for this. So if you are enjoying this channel and you can donate anything at all, it's amazing. We love you forever. Just any little donation helps, because it all just feeds straight back into the channel. Like I say, we're building at the moment props and backdrops and costumes and things for the first actual play series, and everything just feeds into that at the moment. So if you want to check out our Ko-Fi page, I try and update it and keep it kind of interesting. But yeah, to go to the Ko-Fi page and drop any kind of donation you would like. Just a one-off donation is fine, or I think there's a monthly option on there as well. There is. Anything you want to donate is absolutely amazing, and we really appreciate your support. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You don't have to. We're not asking, don't demand anything of you. If you want to just subscribe to the channel and like this video, if you did indeed like it, then that's more than enough. That's plenty. That's amazing in its own way. So yeah, so thank you for all your support and all your eyeballs. That sounded weird. Hopefully we can keep doing this for a long time. The end.